Has this ever happened to you? You're playing through a song or some tabs that you found online, and you realize that the notes are a little boring. Maybe everything sounds the same, or it's just not as exciting as it could be. Well, one of the reasons for that is playing every note the same way and approaching it the same way. There are many different techniques and ways to approach a note and make your way around the fretboard. These can spice up your song and keep it interesting and make it more fun for you to play. Today we'll be talking about 4 of them, and that is slides, bends, hammer-ons, and pull-offs. And we'll start with slides. Now, as I talk about each of these, I'll be using a little riff out of the minor pentatonic scale to demonstrate each technique. It's very simple and the tabs are right below, but here's what it sounds like playing each note normally. Now we'll start with slides. Slides are very simply just moving your finger up and down the fretboard without lifting it off the fretboard until you reach the note or the tone you want. So for example, with that little riff, instead of playing it normally, we can slide our way up, and we can slide our way down. Altogether, we could have something like this. You could also keep your slide all on the same string. The next technique is called a bend. Now, bends are generally kept to the first 3 strings since they're easier to bend. The thicker strings you'll have a harder time reaching the tone, but it is possible, especially for a half-step bend, and some people do still use it. Here, I'll play the first 2 notes normally. When I reach my 3rd note, instead of going up a whole step from the 5th to the 7th fret, I'm going to bend until I reach the tone of the 7th fret. So that's the tone we're looking for. I'll start on the 5th fret and bend up a whole step. You can also bend up half steps if you want to. Right up to the 6th fret. Now, instead of only bending up, we can bend up and back down. So when I reach that 5th fret note on the 3rd string, I will bend up a whole step to the 7th fret tone and then let it come back down to the 5th fret. And here's what that would sound like. Our 3rd technique is called a hammer-on. And it's because you're literally hammering on your finger to another fret. You start by playing and picking 1 fret. Instead of picking the next note, I'm going to use my 3rd finger to hammer on to the 7th fret, like that. And the same thing for the 3rd string. So I'm playing 2 notes with the left hand, but picking only one of them with the right hand. Working your way up the riff together would sound like this. Or a little bit faster. That's a hammer-on. You can also hammer on from an open string to a fret. I'll change the riff a little bit to show you what I mean. And finally, we move on to pull-offs. Pull-offs are the opposite of a hammer-on, where you start with a note, but then instead of hammering on a fret above where you are, you're going to pull off with your finger, use your finger as a pick to a fret below. So your finger is going to come down and out a little bit to make that picking effect. Here's an example on the way down the riff. So I'll work my way up. Now, just like with hammer-ons, but in the opposite direction, you can also pull off to an open string, like this. Now we can combine hammer-ons and pull-offs so that we hammer on our way up the riff and we pull off on our way down, like this. And a little bit faster. This enables us to play things faster, and it has a different sound, maybe in the middle of a solo, than picking each note individually. Now, combining bends and slides and hammer-ons and pull-offs, you can put together some pretty interesting solos or lead lines out of the scales you've been learning. Here's an example.